Usually a homeowners association is supposed to keep things running smoothly, but what happens when the board itself declares war? Today, we're diving into an absolute showdown that tore a whole community apart. It's a story of secret meetings, broken rules, and a total leadership meltdown that landed everybody in court.
I mean, think about it. The very group in charge of enforcing the rules becomes the one breaking them. And this isn't some what-if scenario. It is exactly what went down in one Arizona community, and the fallout? Well, it was something else. So let's set the scene. We're in Sunland Village, an age-restricted community in Arizona. You'd think it's this quiet, peaceful place, right? But back in 2011, its board of directors got so dysfunctional it ended up in court, fighting not a homeowner, but itself. So here's where it all went wrong. A board member quit, leaving just 6 people in charge. And they immediately split into 2 warring factions, 3 on one side, 3 on the other. With no majority, they couldn't agree on a single thing. Total gridlock. The entire community was paralyzed. All right, so here's how we're going to break this whole mess down. First, the divided board itself. Then, a really controversial meeting, a completely improper countermove, some secret legal spending, and finally, the judge's verdict that kind of put everyone in their place. Okay, so the stage is set. You've got this board, deadlocked 3-3. They couldn't even get a quorum. That's the minimum number of people you need to actually make a decision. So they were just stuck. No official business could happen, and you can bet tensions were rising. Now, with everyone stuck in this stalemate, one guy, a Mr. Tobin, decides he's going to make a move. He tried to force the issue at the big annual meeting, and in doing so, boy, did he break a big rule right out of the gate. Okay, so picture this, January 12th, 2011. It's the annual meeting. Mr. Tobin gets up and just introduces 3 motions right there from the floor. And we're not talking small stuff here. He was proposing to change the community's actual bylaws. It was a total surprise. But here's the thing. The community's own rulebook, the bylaws, were super clear about this. You just can't spring a huge rule change on everyone like that. Homeowners had to get at least 10 days of written notice so everyone has time to think about it and vote, even if they can't make the meeting. And this is the kicker. When he was questioned about it, Mr. Tobin flat out admitted it. No written notice. His defense was basically, hey, the moderator let me do it and people voted, so what's the big deal? As we'll see, the judge had a very different opinion. Well, as you can imagine, this move did not go over well with the other side. They decided to fight back. But in their rush to do something, they ended up making their own huge mistake. So just 5 days later, they tried to deal with a complaint about what Tobin did. But you guessed it, 3-3 deadlock. Nothing happens. So a few weeks later, they call this so-called emergency meeting to finally take some action. And at this meeting, they did just what they planned. They voted and declared Mr. Tobin's bylaw changes totally null and void. They were trying to just erase the whole thing. But there was a major problem. And that problem has a name. It's called a quorum. It's actually a pretty simple idea. For any board decision to be official and legally binding, a minimum number of members have to be in the room. For Sunland's 6-person board, that meant a majority. So, for a board of 6 people, what's a majority? It's 4. Simple math. You need at least 4 board members present to hold a valid meeting and take an official vote. And how many showed up to this emergency meeting? Yep, 3. Mr. Tobin and his side weren't there. So by making a decision without enough people in the room, this group had just broken the rules too. So now the battle is just getting bigger and bigger. Both sides have broken major rules, and the opposition decided to take things a step further. And this time, it involved everyone's money. The manager and those 3 opposing members started having secret meetings with a law firm. They spent over $20,000 of the HOA's money on legal fees. They even hired a lawyer to sue. And they did all of this completely behind the backs of the other board members. No approval, no nothing. And, surprise, surprise, the rules were super specific about this. The policy manual said all contact with the lawyers had to be directed by the board, the whole board, not half of it, and that everything had to be shared with all board members. This was another huge violation. Okay, so at this point, this whole mess is way too big to solve in-house. It lands in front of an administrative law judge. The fight was so messy, it had to be split into 3 different cases, each one tackling a different rule that was broken. So let's break down the judge's final scorecard. First up, that meeting without a quorum, the judge sided with Tobin. Invalid. Second, Tobin's surprise bylaw changes, judge sided with Sunland. He broke the rules. And third, those secret legal fees, the judge sided with Tobin again. That spending was unauthorized. So if you're keeping score, it's not a clear win for anybody.
And yeah, breaking all these rules had consequences, financial ones. Because Mr. Tobin lost that one case, he had to cough up their filing fee plus a $200 penalty. But because the association lost 2 cases, it had to pay Tobin back for his 2 filing fees, $1,100 plus $400 in penalties. Now, we're not talking millions of dollars here, but it sends a really clear message from the court. You have to follow the rules.
So, after all that chaos, what's the big lesson here? First, following the rules isn't optional, it's absolutely essential. Second, a divided, deadlocked board is just a recipe for disaster. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, the rules apply to everyone. Both sides thought they were in the right, but by taking shortcuts, they both ended up paying a price.
And all of this really leaves you with one final big question. In a fight like this, where both sides ignore their own roles and drag the whole community into court, who actually wins? And I think the answer is pretty clear. Absolutely no one.